G'day mates, my name's Liam. Today I want to talk about the effective ban on TikTok and how that's going to impact our privacy. A few days ago, the US House of Representatives unanimously passed a bill. Now what the bill would do would give ByteDance, the Chinese company which owns TikTok, effectively 6 months to divest the app or face a ban. You can see here that the bill passed in a 352 to 65 bipartisan vote, but it's uncertain how this is going to play out in the Senate. And what this is in retaliation to is national security concerns with the Chinese-owned company. The bill isn't really focused on data retention or data privacy. What the bill is really focused on is the company's current ownership structure being a national security threat. Now I'll leave it up to you whether you think it is or is not a national security threat, but a lot of governments around the world do see it as a threat. Even in Australia, they have restrictions on TikTok on government devices, and that is the same for the United States, Canada, United Kingdom, and New Zealand. I don't believe these concerns are without merit. Since 2014, the Chinese government has been enacting legislation which covers national security, cyberspace, and law enforcement. They include laws on counter-espionage, national security, counter-terrorism, cybersecurity, foreign NGO management, as well as the 9th Amendment to the PRC criminal law. So with mentioning those other laws, we're going to focus primarily on the intelligence law. Now this law obliges individuals, organizations, and institutions to assist public security and state security officials in carrying out a wide array of intelligence work. Article 7 stipulates that any organization or citizen shall support, assist, and cooperate with state intelligence work according to the law. Article 14, in turn, grants intelligence agencies authority to insist on this support. State intelligence work organs, when legally carrying forth intelligence work, may demand that concerned organs, organizations, or citizens provide needed support, assistance, and cooperation. Organizations and citizens must also protect the secrecy of any state intelligence work secrets of which they are aware. Article 16 authorizes security officials to make inquiries of any individuals as part of their intelligence gathering and to examine their reference materials and files. These officials can also commandeer the communications equipment, transportation, buildings, and other facilities of individuals, as well as organizations and government organs. So because ByteDance is a Chinese-owned company and because they own TikTok, this could be seen as a national security threat. But regardless of all that, I want to cover a few things. Now, it's no secret that TikTok collects a large amount of data on all of its users, and I just wanted to take a look at their privacy policy to see what they actually collect. Now, after reading their privacy policy, they do collect a lot of information, and some of it's relevant, some of it's not, and they probably shouldn't be collecting it, but what company doesn't do that? What I really wanted to get down to is how they share your information. Now, specifically, I wanted to come down and highlight these, how they share your information with their corporate group and for legal reasons. So under the corporate group, they may also share your information with other members, subsidiaries, or affiliates of our corporate group, including to provide the platform to improve and optimize the platform to prevent illegal use and to support users. And for legal reasons, they will share your information with law enforcement agencies, public authorities, or other organizations if legally required to do so, or if such use is reasonably necessary to comply with legal obligations, processes, or requests, enforce our terms of service and other agreements, policies, standards, including investigation of any potential violation thereof, to detect, prevent, or otherwise address security, fraud, or technical issues, or protect the rights, property, or safety of us, our users, a third party, or the public as required or permitted by law. Now, some of what they said in their privacy statement is fine, and a lot of it is just standard. But if you do read their privacy statement and how they share their data in relation to the laws enacted by the Chinese Communist Party, well, I think you have no choice but to conclude that they will share their data and probably have been sharing their data with Chinese authorities. Now, what data is that? I'm not sure, but that's probably why many governments around the world are either considering banning it or stopping people who work for government agencies using TikTok. So would a ban on TikTok be a win for our privacy online? Well, yeah, it would kind of be a win, but I do have some concerns. It sets a bad precedent because it could open up the doors for exploitation in the future. Do we really want to set a precedent where the government's able to coerce a company into selling a product that they own? Which would mean that the government could do this to any company in the future simply because they don't like the owners of that company for whatever reason. Let's say you have an app and it's extremely successful, and it has a daily user base of a few million people. And let's just say you have a lot of reach with that app. Well, if the government doesn't like your political views, your religious views, your affiliations, your beliefs, well, they could force you to sell your own product and change the leadership to someone who's more favorable to their own views. So does TikTok misuse their own users' data? Well, probably it does. What I find very interesting is that there's a vast amount of tech companies in the US which collect data on millions of users daily. And what happens with this data? Well, they also misuse the data. If you look at Meta's privacy policy, you can go through, looks really nice designed, but Meta and all of their associated services collect a lot of information and data from their users. Now, if you come down here and read how they share their information with third parties, they say we don't sell any of your information to anyone and we never will. But I think we all know that that's simply not true. And what Meta has been caught doing is sharing access to users' data with other tech firms including Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, Netflix, Spotify, and Yandex. Now, Google's privacy policy is basically the same thing. Although the interesting thing with Google's is that they say they do not sell your personal data. But what's interesting to me is that they actually do. And they do it through a process called real-time bidding. And Google is very open about this and transparent about it. But there are a lot of bad things associated with it. So although Google says that it doesn't monetize your data, it actually does. And here's the process. It's either called real-time bidding or open bidding. Google monetizes what it observes about people in two major ways. It uses data to build individual profiles with demographics and interests, then lets advertisers target groups of people based on those traits, and it shares data with advertisers directly and asks them to bid on individual ads. Now you might be asking yourself, what is real-time bidding? Well, it's where publishers auction off space on their apps or software or sites to allow advertising. In doing this process, they share sensitive data, including geolocation, device IDs, sensitive cookies, and browsing history. And they do this with thousands of ad tech companies, which is sometimes why you might want to browse the internet using a VPN and incognito mode. But Google was recently caught lying about their incognito mode, and it wasn't as private as people thought. Google does not care about your privacy at all. Google admits that Chrome's incognito mode is not so private after all. But let's get back to real-time bidding. Here's a really good example of how this works. Whenever you access websites, you send sensitive cookies and headers. And what this is sent to is a bidding exchange, which matches your cookie ID to a user ID so they can build a complete digital profile of who you are as a user. Now, this profile is extremely detailed and created just for you. They're sent out as bidding requests, and people bid on your profile, and after a winner has been decided, your profile is sent to the advertisers so that they can send targeted ads to you. Now, what does a system of mass data collection enable these people to do? Well, it enables profiling and surveillance by advertisers and data brokers. To give you an example of how invasive this can be, so a University of New South Wales law researcher, Catherine Kemp, analysed the privacy policies and settings of 12 most popular fertility apps used by Australian consumers, finding concerning, unsafe, and unfair data practices. Dr. Kemp found consumers were being presented with misleading privacy messages and were not given control over the use of their data for advertising and research purposes. Once you have a fertility app sharing health and personal information with advertisers and other data brokers, it can end up in the hands of insurers and other organizations who are in the position to make decisions which could disadvantage someone on the basis of their intimate data. And we can even take it a step further and take a look at the smartphones we use and the smart devices we use. Any smart device that you've set up to have voice recognition and you have on all the time is listening to you. So why is your phone listening to you? Well, it's mainly for marketing purposes. Just like how Google and other search engines keep track of your search and browsing history to make sure online ads you see are relevant to your particular interests, your voice data is used in the same way. It's simply another means to target relevant advertisements to you, which in turn helps their advertisers stretch their client's dollar as far as they can by avoiding irrelevant ad targeting. So is your phone always listening? Well, let's take a look. Android, it may not be recording everything because that would be a large amount of data to upload, but it does record words and key phrases which could be relevant to advertisers. And it can be accidentally activated and record sensitive conversations or other details from your personal life. Now, what about iPhone? Well, yeah, it is also listening to you as well. Siri was one of the very first virtual assistants on any smartphone and is constantly listening for certain wake words or other keywords. However, Apple goes a bit further than other devices. Your iPhone will randomly select parts of conversations recorded by Siri to determine how they can improve their service. Unfortunately, whenever you use one of these devices, you have to accept some terms and conditions. And those terms and conditions do include that form of surveillance. Does it mean that I agree with it? No way. I think that it's completely wrong. And I think that when you are accepting the terms and conditions, well, you're not actually accepting those terms and conditions, but you want to use the device because you have to use a device nowadays. And let's not forget, there were many instances of the American government collecting large amounts of data and surveillance surveillance on their own citizens. And I'm sure that's exactly the same wherever you go, whether you're in Canada, Australia, America, the UK, New Zealand, wherever you are, you will still have your data being collected. So how has this all happened, and how has our digital privacy gotten to the point where it just doesn't matter and it's exploited every single day? Well, I think some of the scummiest people online nowadays are these companies who collect mass amounts of data and build digital profiles for everyone without their consent. And these companies and people are data brokers. Data brokers are a massive issue in America. And I think they are some of the biggest threats to anyone's privacy. Thousands of data brokers in the United States buy, aggregate, disclose, and sell billions of data elements on Americans with virtually no oversight. As the data broker industry proliferates, companies have enormous financial incentives to collect consumers' personal data, while data brokers have little financial incentive to protect consumer data. For these companies, consumers are the product, not the customer. Companies also maintain information about consumers that is often inaccurate, wrongfully denying them credit, housing, or even jobs. And there doesn't seem to be much regulation, if at all, on what information these data brokers can collect. Data brokers can collect all your personal information, which include names, addresses, phone numbers, jobs, professions, income, political preference, education, marital status, children, age, gender, your contact information, your cars and real estate owned. They also collect information on where you purchase stuff, what you've purchased, your shopping habits. Data brokers also collect health information, sites we visit, and advertisements we click on. And because of smart devices, data brokers also collect and sell real-time location data. So rather than solely taking aim at TikTok for threatening national security, why doesn't the government also take aim at all of these other big tech companies and data brokers for also doing the exact same thing? Because it was never really about data security and privacy. It was more about who owned the company. Really, because ByteDance is from China. So the government seems to be fine with certain forms of surveillance and exposure and invasions of privacy, but not other forms. And because of the lack of privacy laws and regulation in the industry, this has allowed data brokers to collect information and build digital profiles on millions of Americans, threatening individuals' privacies and civil rights, national security, and democracy. So when we think about China and how terrible it is that they have a social credit score for all of their people in their country, well, actually, we should be concerned with what's happening closer to home. Data brokers use secret algorithms to build profiles on every single American citizen that they can, regardless of whether the individual who's having their profile built for them knows that the data broker has their information or not. Data brokers' algorithms can affect individuals' lives, and they can be used to deny people jobs, to increase your rates on mortgage, interest, and affect your credit score. Now, this site is a great example of just people's personal information being completely out there to the public. Let's say you just want to search for Elon Musk. You can go ahead and click search. Here are the results. Is this information accurate? Well, I'm not sure because I do not know where Elon Musk lives. Regardless of me not knowing if that's Elon Musk's real details or not, I did look up people that I do know in America. They do have their information on there, and I think that's just completely wrong. You can look up exactly who they're related to, you could look up their contact details, you could look up exactly where they live, you could look up their profession, and that just seems completely an invasion of privacy. So I think what I wanted to do with this video is just alert people to the fact that while TikTok may collect a lot of data, there are a lot of other companies who do exactly the same thing, potentially worse. The amount of data and personalized data that data brokers have probably about you is just a complete invasion of privacy. And honestly, in reading about it, I was completely shocked in how much data and the type of data that they collect. It should honestly be illegal, especially because no consent is given to this scale of data collection. I think that needs to be targeted first over something like TikTok, which I don't think is nearly as bad as what data brokers do. Think about the amount of information and what you want people to know about you online. You probably wouldn't want them to know where you lived, how to contact you, how to find you. And because these data brokers collect all of this information, including real-time location data, that could seriously be exploited, especially because you can find a lot of this basic information online just freely available to the public. And if there was a data breach of any of this more sensitive data, well, that could be seriously dangerous, and it could affect millions of people's safety and lives livelihood. And it really just goes to show that you are not private when you are going online, and you really should choose to limit how much data that you share about yourself. Don't give out data to companies that you do not want to wind up on the internet. So will the bill to potentially ban TikTok have the desired effect? Well, I'm not entirely sure, and I think that either China will be forced to sell their part of that company, or they will just pull TikTok from use in the US. And that could affect millions of people's lives who have made a brand for themselves on that platform. All that I can say is that if it is to do with national security, then they shouldn't just be targeting TikTok. There are a lot of other tech companies which pose significant threats to national security of many different countries, not just the US. But anyway, guys, these have just been my thoughts, opinions, and experiences on the matter. I'd be really interested to know what you guys think about it, so let me know down below. Did you guys even know about data brokers and the amount of data that they collect about millions of Americans each and every day? Do you think that banning TikTok is a good thing? Do you think it's a small victory to protect our digital privacy? Let me know down in the comments below. Thank you for watching the video. If you liked or disliked it, let me know. Subscribe for more content, and I'll see you guys in the next one. See ya.